Have you ever wondered what you would need to start up a laser engraving business? Aside from the obvious, your laser, I've got 5 things I want to talk to you about what you need and what considerations that you may have in the whenever you go to purchase your first laser. Hey, I'm Rick the Huge, and I have 5 years of laser engraving business experience, and I've been doing this pretty much full time for the last 4 years. So there were some questions that I needed answered that I didn't know at the time. So I'm going to try to impart some knowledge with you. The first thing that I needed to know, and what you would need to know, is what kind of space do you need? What kind of laser are you looking to do? What kind of work are you actually wanting to do? There are several different types of lasers out in the market, and I will go in depth a little bit more on future videos. There's galvo lasers, which I've got one right here just kind of off screen. There's gantry style or tank style, which is right behind us. Those are usually your CO2 lasers. And then your there is diode lasers. Now, each one has specific things that they do. Some work different ways. And there's other considerations that you need to do whenever you are looking at a laser. Now, tip number one, whenever you're talking to that laser company that you decide of what and where and what have you, ask about the electrical concerns. Now, both of my lasers, and I've actually had 3 of them. My first one was a glow forge. I kept that one in the house, ran the exhaust out the window. Everything was happy. This one, while it could fit in the door, I have considerations. I don't have the room to do so. My fiber laser, which is a galvo style laser, I can bring that into the house. I can run exhaust. Everything's happy. The considerations that you have to consider is electrical. Now, whenever I first got this, the AP laser right behind me was the first big laser that I ever got. And it had certain requirements. Well, the website didn't tell me those requirements. I had to ask. And the key thing was electrical. Now, I had to go spend some money, have an electrician come out and basically run electrical wiring for this laser and future lasers. It required 15 amp outlets. So I went ahead and did a gang box of 4 outlets, and each one has their own fuse. They're each rated at 15 or 20 amps. I forget which. I think it was 20 amps. But you need to ask that question, because you don't want to be tripping breakers all day long, and especially in the middle of a job. The other thing, that number 2, that you have to worry about is the old money issue. How much money, can you spend on a laser? Well, you could actually spend a lot, and it does get very expensive. Now, this one and even my fiber laser, I will argue that I paid way too much for. But it was a dollar amount I was willing to spend, because the return on investment was a little bit different. The other thing that I got, especially whenever I started out with this AP laser, is it was sold to me as turnkey. That means it came with a laser, it came with a computer or a laptop, and had all the software, had everything I needed to do to do that, including 8 hours of training. Now, could I have gotten something cheaper? You bet. I could throw a dartboard and Google search everything and find one that's a lot cheaper. The difference between this one and the cheaper ones was the training, the laptop, and the fact that this is an open concept laser. What is an open concept laser, you ask? Open concept laser means that there is a Z table which brings it up or down, and I can move it out of the way. So I have like a little cart that I could slide under there. If it's just it only drops down. I think it's about 11 inches, if that far down. And I've engraved the edges of cutting boards, and that in itself was worth the price of admission. I've done shovels. I've done glass. You can look at videos on my channel. You'll see them, except for the shovel. I didn't record that one. But the point is, each laser has its own specific job. Now, I could do wood, I could do tumblers, I could even do glass on this one. And with spray, I could do metals with that. So everything has its, the lasers can do almost everything. At least this one can. I can't deep engrave into metal with this. There are limitations with every laser. Now my fiber, which again you can't see and it's off screen, that one could do metal. It could do polymers. It can engrave on acrylics, especially like your smoky ones or your dark, your black. It can do tumblers. It can do stainless steel. It can't do woods. It does not like the wood. It can do precious metals like gold, silver, titanium. But again, this is where you, as a future laser engraver, whether it's a side hustle or what have you, you have to look and you have to see what you actually want to do. Now, number 3, where are you going to put this thing? Now, if you have an existing business, you may have a spot there. If you are like me, I work out of the house right now. I put it in my garage because, again, we have to consider what all that is able to handle. I did have a shop in downtown, and there was only one strike against it, and that was wooden floors. And the first time that I did a laser engraving job in there, oh man, my landlord came in and said, "Hey Rick, blah." And I'm like, oh man, because it made the laser jump. So it went beep, 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 and it messed up the tumbler. Now, fortunately for me, I had extras. Fiber doesn't really care. It's got a little beam or galvo head that goes like this with a mirror, and it just bounces back and forth, and voodoo magic happens down below it. Beautiful thing. I do a lot of business cards on this one, but this one I had to worry about the wood floors. So now, when I say wood floors, I'm talking about this building that I was in was built in the 1880s. So they didn't have the same building structure or floor joist spacing or framing that a traditional or what would be deemed as a new wood home would be. Now here, I'm in my garage. I've got concrete floors, and once I get all my junk moved out from over on that side, I'm going to be spreading out. So I've got that consideration. But overall, that was a beautiful thing. Number 4, lasers produce heat. Now, my CO2, it has water tank in the back to keep the laser cool. You have to be able to, you have to choose your battles. Now, some lasers, they do come with water chillers, or they have access to them. This is, again, something you need to consider when you're buying a laser engraving or laser engraver. My fiber works on a solid state. It doesn't have that consideration. Yes, heat and cold do play a factor with it, but it's not as temperature sensitive as this beast back behind me. But it does its fair share of work. Number four, you need to be able to exhaust. And I kind of led into that when we were talking about where we're putting it. If I were to put it in the house or what have you, you have to be able to exhaust. That means getting all the bad fumes, smoke, whatever, out of the room that you're engraving in. Now, I have an inline fan. This came with what they called a squirrel box, and that thing was just loud. Whenever I switched over to an inline fan, the laser was louder than the fan. And you're able to control the speed so you can do what have you. And that also works on my fiber laser. Now, another thing that you could look at is a HEPA filtration system. Now, they do have them designed for lasers. You could hook that up, throw it in your house. Yeah, there's going to be some noise in there, and hopefully your spouse is a very heavy sleeper, or you're doing it while they're at work, or they're helping you, one of the three. So I had those considerations to deal with. Now, again, I have an inline fan. I don't have the HEPA filtration system. One, it was too expensive. You can go to Amazon, and I will try to post a link down below for the ones that I recommend. Now, there's several of them that are out there that are cheaper, but bottom line, it's good stuff. The problem number two, aside from the expense with the HEPA filtration system, is if you're doing wood, all that oil that's up in the smoke that gets all that exhaust, when it hits into the media, into the HEPA filtration system, all that fun stuff, it will gum it up. So you're going to be, the HEPA filters, depending on the brand that you get, and I'll try to post some down below, they'll gum up. If you're doing like tumblers or maybe some acrylic, which that thing can do as well, you shouldn't have that much of an issue. You could take, if you plan on taking a machine to shows, that may actually benefit you even if you're doing wood. So take that into consideration. The fifth one that I wish I'd known, and they kind of let you know, but sometimes it does, you're left up to the manufacturer's will on this. The type of software that you are able to use. Now, when I got this one, I had to use RDWorks. There was another software called Lightburn, which I have transitioned over to, and I'll explain that here in a moment. But what it depends on, and there's technically 3 different types of laser engraving software out there. You've got your RDWorks, you have your Lightburn, and then you have your proprietary. That's the software that, if you bought let's say you bought DV LaserWorks software or Lazer, if I had one, and it was you had to use that particular software in order to engrave on that machine. That means you wouldn't be able to use CorelDRAW, you wouldn't be able to use Lightburn. That is specific. There's also there's a fourth and a fifth type of software, and that's EasyCAD 2 and EasyCAD 3. And I have this, my fiber laser came with EasyCAD 2. It was interesting. We called it Easy Crash because you'd be right in the middle of a job and it would just crash out on you. Real fun times. Now, the reason why I bring these up, and 9 times out of 10, your RD Works, your proprietary laser engraving software for whatever company you're going with, and fiber lasers or galvo style lasers, they use PCs. Now, when it comes down to Lightburn, it's trilingual. It's able to use Linux, it's able to use PC, and it's also able to use Mac. So if you're a Mac fanboy like me, I love my Mac, but I'm bilingual as far as my computer language skills are concerned. I'm an equal opportunity offender. Oh well. Now, the computers are going to be the driving force. Do I buy a Mac? Do I buy a PC? Do I need to have a PC? That's where Lightburn comes into play, and Lightburn is able to work on Mac, like I said, and this is where computers are very big. I had the laptop that came with this thing. It was horrendous. It was from Canada. It had the French keyboard, all that fun stuff. It wasn't a keyboard that I was used to. Now, yes, I could buy another keyboard, no big whoop. The problem is it bricked up on me because I was doing all my designs with CorelDRAW and all that other fun stuff. And it finally bricked up on me. I tried to defrag. I tried to empty out the temp folder. It was a real pain. The problem that it had also with it, it was an 8 gig of RAM. Now, to many that wouldn't be much, but it's something that you need to consider. I went ahead and upgraded to my 2010 Mac or iMac, 27-inch monitor, all that fun stuff, and loaded up Lightburn. I'd been hesitating on going to Lightburn because it was a little bit of money, not too bad. It's an annual subscription. You don't have to pay for it. You just won't get the updates unless you deleted it and then did the trial again. And I'll put that software down below. The iMac, again, 2010, and I got this thing in 2020. It worked. Had no issues. It talked very well. Lightburn is a very powerful tool, but I also had 16 gig of RAM. Now, I got bold and I decided, well, when the Mac Mini came out with the M1 chip, I was going to try that out. I was being cheap. Arguably, I should have gone with the 16 gig. So no matter what computer, laptop, or what have you, whatever you wish to get, make sure that you have a minimum of 16 gigs of RAM. It will save your bacon. Now, a lot of computers nowadays, they come with basically 8 gig of RAM. So that means that you're potentially going to have to move um, up to a gaming computer, which is a little pricier. So you have to consider that as well. Um, but those are the 5 things that I learned. I will have more. I'll continue to add more. I'll be doing a video about tools, what you need to have as a minimum with your setup. And we'll talk about that on the next one. Again, this is Rick the Ooge.